So when it comes to building a profitable practice, many chiropractors think that they have to really work hard and long hours. They have a notion that when they aren't at the coalface seeing their practice members, their people, their patients, then the practice isn't growing. So they've got to be there priming the pumps the whole time. Now, it sounds logical, right? If you want to grow, then obviously you've got to put in the work. And that's partially true. However, that it is also a huge mistake because when you're continually immersed in the practice and you're at the cutting edge, you're disregarding a lot of stuff that's going on around you. You are losing on huge growth opportunities. And so you start to see things through a very limited filter. And these opportunities and possibilities then pass you by. So it's to this we're addressing today, and it's a critical component of practice growth that's often overlooked by chiropractors. So by the way, there's a worksheet that we're giving out entitled "How to Grow Your Practice by Taking Time Off." And it's a guide and it goes along with this video. So if you want a copy of it, just download it from here. Otherwise, just take good notes when we do as we go through this video, and I know there's going to be good value here for you. So, if you don't utilize this approach, if you don't have a way of a measured way of taking time off of allowing yourself to get outside of your practice so you can see it from the outside in, then you are missing out. And some of the signs of this would be things like, well, your practice volume is like a roller coaster and it fluctuates with your energy levels. So some weeks you're up when you're up, and then some weeks you're down when you're down, and it has this effect of following you and your energy, because you're putting in so much energy to the practice itself. So that's certainly one sign. Another sign might be that your team members actually give up in creative ideas. They don't worry about coming to you with creative ideas anymore, and they don't sort of come with practice expansion thoughts and so forth, because it's like business as usual. And that's probably rolls into that third point, that becomes a bit of a rut. It's sort of the same old routine. Everything's done the same from the time you get out of bed in the morning to the time you get in the car till you go to the office, and you go the same route to the office, and you then go in and you see your people. But it's just same numbers or similar numbers, or we get stressed when the numbers are down, and we get elated when the numbers are up. And but it's about maintaining the same or trying to push through it. But this process won't allow us to push through it. So then the practice has to, and this is probably the fourth thing, the practice has to be pumped. And it has to be constantly pumped just to keep it going. And that means, constantly searching out for new people and struggling to retain those that are there. And that stuff becomes front and center of your thinking. So, it's not a very useful situation. If we look out into the world and you look at nature, nature's playbook has an amazing gifts for us, and nature shows us that there's times for planting, there's times for harvest, there's times of growth, there's times of consolidation, and there's a time and place for your attention to the practice also. And it's like there's a time for and a right time for certain things. But when we're in it, we don't necessarily notice the patterns. We don't notice the time going. And so, there's attention in the practice that's needed, and much of its strength and resilience actually comes when you're not putting much into it. So in other words, when you're not there. Now this is like a tree gets its strength when it's the winter time, and the leaves have all fallen off and it looks like it's dead, but underneath it's growing stronger. So the question around this is, well, how do we do that? Like, what is the mechanism for us strengthening the practice even when we're not there? So in our experience with coaching hundreds upon hundreds and hundreds of chiros around the world for a long time, the chiropractors who take generous time away from the practice on a regular basis have the most robust practices, without doubt. So, and by the way, it's not because their practices is robust so that they can take time out. It's that the practice is robust because they do take time out. And there's a big difference there. So what is it about this time out that allows the practice to get stronger? Well, instead of being tied to the practice, then we look at this nature's showcase for us, the instruction book, if you like, from nature, and it is about being able to get external and refresh oneself. Obviously, there's a huge power in making sure that we're fresh and we're dynamic and we're seeing things from a new way. So we're looking after our bodies more. We're giving our chance to catch up on maybe some sleep or some exercise, or going to foreign lands allows us to take in different cultures and different paradigms and different viewpoints, and our appreciation for others is increased by doing that. So this then allows us to come into a practice, or back into our practice, that has a consistency to it, that is an uptick, rather than that roller coaster practice that fluctuates based on our energy and our struggling energy. It converts into a steady uptick because it gives us an opportunity to plan, to look at things on a longer term perspective. We're always looking forward to the next time out. And we plan accordingly. So we recommend that you look at, say, 8-week units. So you see an 8-week unit of activity, and you can plan for that. So you're not taking off too much, which gets you overwhelmed, but you're not taking off too little, which means that you get bored. So there's a phenomena that occurs with the stats when people do take the time out. Now, the practice members, or particularly the team members, are coming up with creative ideas for practice expansion, because when things are fresh and new, and you go away for a period of time, maybe they have breaks too, maybe put it around school holidays and so forth if they have kids, but allowing them to get some time off, and then you all come back in with a new viewpoint. Now you also may have a locum that comes in. If you have associates, that's a different story, and we'll do a whole new thing on this, another thing on this, because that's having an associate practice and building it by this method is magic, absolute magic. So anyway, we'll cover that one. This is just about practice in general right now, but you have someone that comes in, and just by the way on this one, if you get a great locum to come in, people are really happy with that person. They see them in your absence, and so they're really happy with you when you come back. The fact that you have found someone so amazing for them. They may throw you a little bit of crap about this. Oh God, you're back again. I like the young one, or the older one, or whatever the case may be. But the point being is that they appreciate you for finding someone great. And this is often a reason why chiros don't go away, don't have time out, is that they don't trust anyone else to do as good as they could, and possibly that's true. But nevertheless, if it is true, and this person does a horrible job, right? So you got one locum who does a great job, the other locum who does a horrible job, and very, very bad and irritating and rude, or whatever it happens to be. You don't do that once, but people are so glad to have you back. They're just like, oh gee, I appreciate you more than ever before, because that other guy that you got, or the girl that you got, they just they were a drongo, they didn't do it, they didn't get the results of whatever it was, and so they appreciate you there. So you win both ways. You win both ways by getting someone in to relieve you in this time. So we're not suggesting for a minute that you just close the place down. We want you to have give your practice members the experience to make distinctions, or the opportunity to make distinctions around the different styles of care. So you get to develop new ways of doing things when you leave and come back again. So there's a huge value in that. And obviously the last one is that the practice is stimulated by this change in delivery. And this in turn stimulates new blood, new patients or new people who are coming in. It stimulates recommitment of your practice members to the value of care. And that whether it's based on a good or a bad, or move away from or move towards relative to whoever you had coming in to look after the practice, it's still the bottom line is that it stimulates the energy of the practice, right? So I would say in terms of logistics here, there are 4 things that you need to know around this, or that are very useful to know around this. So let's just dive into the diagram here that you've got on your handout, if you do happen to have downloaded it, and pick this one apart a little bit here. So if you've been on any of these calls or any of these videos, you'll have noticed that we have this model, which we call the innate model. And it represents the brain, so there's the right and there's the left part of the brain from the vertex view, and then there's the hindbrain, there's the forebrain. And within those brain components, we do have different neurological functions, obviously. And so the right tends to be future-oriented, and the left tends to be past, and big picture in the front, and detail at the back. Now, if you want more information on this, the innate model number 8, IN number 8 model, is a book that I wrote a number of years ago, but this is what this is based on. So all of our coaching is done via this model as well, for good reason. So I just want to synthesize this really quickly. Firstly, we want to get clear on where we are and where we want to go, right? So, where are we? Now, this is critical when it comes to designing what's appropriate for time off. So we'll get to that in just a second. So, we ask this question: where are we, and where to? Right. So where do we want to go? And we would suggest, as I said before, that we look at an 8-week time frame. Right? 8 weeks is a measurable time. It's not too much, not too short, and this gives us a reference point. So where are we taking the business or the practice in this next period of time? The next level of this then is to say, well, what is the model? Right. So what are we going to do? How is this going to be planned out? Right. So the model that we have on this, it is dependent on firstly the size of the practice, the growth of the practice, and where we are within that. So if we looked at because a person who's only been in practice for 1 year is certainly not going to be able to take as much time off as a person who's been in practice for, say, 3 or 4 years. So within this, then we say, okay, in year 1, if we're working an 8-week cycle, then we look at, say, a long weekend. So it's your first year in practice. Make sure that every 8 weeks there's a long weekend, right? So that could be, say, 4 days, right? Maybe on Friday through Tuesday or something. So just a 4-day weekend. And of course, annually, we'd be wanting to look at least 2 weeks, right? So, that's pretty average for first year out. First year out is getting momentum. It's putting the accelerator to the floor and getting as much as you can going. And obviously it does vary in terms of how fast your startup is, what sort of assistance you get, whether you're an associate, whether you're starting from scratch, and so forth. So the next model would be around 8 weeks. This would be for, say, 2 years out. So 2 years out, then you would want to make sure that you have at least a week. So a week every 8 weeks, and that week every 8 weeks would also be added to with your maybe the annual holiday get away might be 2 weeks annually at some stage, maybe over the Christmas period or so. So that that's extending it out, and this 1 week could go to 10 days depending on your volume. So that's every 8 weeks. So every 2 months you take that time off, and then we'd start to look at, well, okay, How about putting the two 8 weeks together? So we have, after 3 years, we're doing maybe every 16 weeks. Then we're looking at, say, maybe 2 weeks off, and the annual maybe 3 weeks, 3 weeks to a month. Right, so that's, and once again, it depends on the momentum that you have, and the by then you'll be getting the experience of the locums, or if you're an associate in the practice, then obviously other associates can take over the load as well. So there's an increment taking place here. So by the time we get to about four years into it, we should be in a position of taking every 16 weeks, taking a month off and getting away for a month, and annually, this is as well as, say, three weeks to a month. So what we've got there is a graded scale. It is dependent on volume. It's dependent on many factors that you can start to build in, right? So such things as whenever you're taking a holiday, it would be useful to have not only that holiday paid for in advance, but also have the next holiday lined up and pretty well sorted, maybe even an allocation of funds for that. So in other words, you start to build up a holiday account which goes forward. So that's then the model, if you like, and that model was applied through this quadrant 2 part. So whichever the model is, get clear on what is right for you. The third area is that we want to plan ahead. Right, so that's part of the information we're just going through there on the type of model. Plan ahead for that model and make sure that we get the big rocks in first. And this is about making sure that your annual calendar is catering for these holidays right up front. So it's before anything else gets fitted in, put the holidays in there. Now you may want to jiggle things around so it coincides with school holidays or doesn't coincide with school holidays, whatever your case may be. And maybe you put it, juggle it around a little bit so that it coincides with seminars. You may decide you want to do seminars in foreign locations. Like I've just got back from 2 months away in Europe, and one of the things we factored into that was a seminar in Croatia, and just happened because we're in Croatia, well, of course, we better go sailing for a week. So that sort of flows with it. So if you can start to look at being strategic about this and making sure that you can plan ahead with it so that you can make it feasible, you can make it tax advantaged, you can make sure that you catch up with the friends that you wish. I mean, even with us, we've always supported our kids to be independent, and they certainly were. They are located in 3 different countries: US and New Zealand and Australia. So there's opportunities there for us to catch up with grandkids. We've got 2 in each location, so that then is also an added incentive, if you like, to traveling, to seeing the world, to seeing different places, and getting a feel for what's going on in your business, but from a distant point of view. So, and the last part of this is to honour it. Just make sure that you do acknowledge it, that you take it on for real. You've got it on the plan there. You don't alter it unless you really, really have to. And so you alter onto the plan, but you also reinvent it. Because there's going to be some other aspects to it along the way. But make sure that you reinvent the plan so that you can optimize it. And one thing that we make sure we do in the practice, for example, is that everyone has their time off on a yearly planner. And so we make sure that we're not going to be usurping anyone else's holidays by taking one at the same time, if that's not appropriate. So having that conversation, having that yearly plan, but it's all starting way ahead of time. And October, November is the time when we're starting to look at the next year, where we're going to go, what we're going to do, how we're going to develop ourselves. And you might even look at a theme that you have. 1 year it could be ancient history, 1 year it could be learning current skills and techniques. 1 year it could be museums or libraries, or outdoor activities. I mean, climbing the highest mountains and skiing the best runs and riding the best waves, or whatever that happens to be. But get creative with that. What part of the earth would you love to experience? So once again, if you want your energy levels to convert into a steady uptick within the practice, that things are moving in a progressive way, and consistent with your design. If you want your team members to be engaged and coming up with creative ideas for expansion, if you want to develop new ways of doing things, if you want the practice to be stimulated by the changes in its delivery system, and new people coming in, and this recommitment that's happening within people, and the growth that comes from that, then you'll want to consider this. Consider it really as to how you're going to grow your practice by taking time off. And it seems so weird, it seems so different, but it's so powerful. So if you want to find out more about how we can help you to grow your practice by taking time off, then just click down below, and I tell you, it is a game changer. So have fun with it, have great times away, and in the early stages it may be just camping down at the local beach, but it's to get away, to go to the outside looking in, and you're going to make huge changes in your practice just because you've done that. So have fun with it. Cheers.